My wife told me yesterday, when I was complaining of pain here, pain there, she said that just imagine that it is at this age that we'll be struggling to build a house, struggling to train children. That it was wise of us to have used our youthful energy and invested our resources in this land. And that old age is not good for hustling for money. I say you cannot. I say why? I say because I'm Dr. Apoki. I'm your friend Dr. Charles Apoki. Remain your friend, Dr. Charles Apoki. I am your friend, Dr. Charles Apoki. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. The reason I pronounce my name Apoki is deliberate. It's because people usually spell my name wrongly and pronounce it wrongly. Hence the emphasis. And I still see people write Apoki. My name is Apoki. I'm so glad to meet you this morning. I want to dwell on the values of currency. I am not an expert, but I want to give you basic understanding of some issues. I was discussing with some of my family members based in Europe, and I was encouraging them to invest in their country and Nigeria. And one of them raised the question that his partner there, his friend there, has always raised, that the value of the naira is coming down, going down, and that it's difficult to repatriate money from their investment in Nigeria to Europe or to America. Let me tell you the little bit I know about currency and values and investment and the need to invest in your country of origin if that country is stable. But even if it is stable, I've seen Somali Americans going back to Somalia to invest even in the midst of the turbulence in Somalia. Now, growing up, when I was in medical school, or even before medical school, the dollar was $2 to 1 naira. You could spend the naira in the streets of London. Because as at then, currencies were based on gold reserve and the gold standard. But the Bretton Woods institutions, Bretton Woods is a town in the United States. Remember, after the Second World War, the Marshall Plan was put in place to rebuild Europe. The World Bank, International Monetary Fund, and several institutions were put in place to reconstruct Europe. But with the currencies based on, the value of currencies based on the gold standard, there were countries that had currencies and had gold that were poor countries. Ghana was called Gold Coast, Nigeria, and several other countries. And Nigeria became a very powerful force in the international community. particularly during the struggle for the freedom of African nations. And with currencies pegged on gold standard, imports from Africa and from these countries became very expensive for the European and American economy. And how do you recolonize these people and make their citizens feel uncomfortable in their countries and migrate to your own country? That was when Richard Nixon in 1970 removed the dollar from the gold standard. And the dollar is not backed by gold reserve. It is just backed by the might of America. And so the naira started sliding. When I sent my children to Europe, the dollar was but the naira was 114 naira to the dollar. With the devaluation suggested by IMF and maybe the World Bank, the naira started going down. The monies we got from exports in terms of bundles of naira increased. But when these products go to Europe and America and they are refined and reprocessed, take cocoa for example. If cocoa goes to Europe and comes back as chocolate, you import it with a higher value. You buy it with more cedis or more naira than you will have bought it. So the European factories and their economies were doing better while we were expending more energy, more resources to buy back our raw materials. So the colonization process continued. Now, with that, the economies of countries like Nigeria started going down, also with corruption and theft and stupidity from the side of our leaders. This necessitated our children crossing the desert, crossing the ocean, flying legitimately to go overseas to do business or acquire education or to work. Because if they now brought these monies back and exchanged them, they got more of local currencies and could display wealth and could buy buildings and make their parents and themselves feel superior to those who are spending local currencies. In addition, life was more comfortable and is more comfortable for them overseas. Better health services, better security in many places, human rights are respected. But the cost of living is very high when you compare to what is in Nigeria or Kenya or wherever. The effort these people overseas put to make money, those of us who are in Africa do not put as much effort to make such money. It is true that the repatriation of money back to countries like Philippines and India contributed a great deal to the GDP of such countries. But if we had managed our economies very well, foreign direct investments and tourism would have brought a lot of money. Countries like Seychelles, their currency is quite high because of tourism. Countries like Ethiopia, the value of the birr, B-I-R-R, or BIRR is quite high compared to countries like Nigeria, where there is little or very little tourism. The value of the Kenyan shilling is much higher than that of Nigeria because tourists bring dollars. But let's sit down and think. The Chinese yuan and the American dollar, which one is higher in value? Definitely, the American dollar is higher in value than the Chinese yuan. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it rightly. But who is owing who? America is more indebted to China than any other nation. The United States of America is heavily indebted to China. If you enter an American home, conservatively, you might see 40% of the utilities in that house are produced in China, whose economy is influencing nations globally between America and China. The Chinese economy. At one time, they had to stop the importation of braziers to the UK because the importation of braziers to the UK would have killed the brazier factory in the UK. So, it is not the value of currency that really matters. The Indian rupee is low compared to the American dollar, but the Indian economy is growing at a very fast pace. It is not the value of currencies that really matter. It is what you do in your country. What you do in your country. Nations that can meet domestic consumption with large populations do well. If you produce anything in a country with large population and the population consumes your products, you'll do well. The Chinese economy is big because of the large population. The German economy is big because they have population. The BRICS countries, BRICS, that is Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, large population, products. So, what does an African living in the diaspora need to do? When the currencies of your nations are going down, you have a comparative advantage. Number one, why don't you invest in buying properties in the countries you reside, apartments, for example, and then rent them out? When you rent them out, the money you will collect from rent, send back to your countries. Use them to buy bigger real estate, buy buildings that will equally generate rent and wealth for you, so that in old age, you can live in two continents comfortably. It rained this morning. I went back to my bed. It has stopped and I needed to record. I don't need to leave this house this morning. I don't need to work. The investments I had put on ground are generating revenue for me. People are working for me. People are working for me. At least about 100 people. Most of them graduates are working for me this morning. Because at the age of 40, I started investing in this suburban economy. My wife told me yesterday, when I was complaining of pain here, pain there, she said that just imagine that it is at this age that we'll be struggling to build a house, struggling to train children, that it was wise of us to have used our youthful energy and invested our resources in this land. And that old age is not good for hustling for money. And I took note of that. Just in front of me here, there is a facility that generates millions of naira every weekend. And it is owned by an indigene. Ugeli here, there is a shopping center near me here. If they sell less than 3 million naira daily, is underestimation. During festive periods, if they sell less than 5 million naira daily, it is small. And there's an eatery. There are businesses in Ugeli here. Ugeli is a small town that are generating revenue for people. There are people with dredgers, dredging sand, people with tippers, carrying sand. People are building. There are an eatery in Apoki, AJ. You will see people, population, people buying food. Very busy. Let me tell you, nobody here. There are weekends, you won't see a vacant room in any hotel. 99.99% of the rooms are fully booked, and some of these hotels are big. So you can generate local currency and become wealthy and live in these two continents and enjoy the two worlds. You have access to very good healthcare overseas. Your grandchildren have very good schools to attend. And you have your natural African milieu where you can grow old. I don't see anything in Europe that is not in Namibia, for example. Namibia, very beautiful country. I don't see why somebody from Kigali, even though there are challenges in Nairobi. Nairobi is a very beautiful place. And so, Abuja, I flew over this country, Brazzaville, one town, Brazzaville. I think it's in Gabon. Beautiful place. Bata, beautiful place. We can make money in Europe and America. The low currency value of currencies in our countries, we can repatriate these funds, bring technology, bring expertise, bring knowledge, bring skills, and develop Africa, and create wealth, and live comfortably. And the influential, ask the two people I was discussing with, how many really rich Nigerians live permanently overseas? They always come back home, either to contest election or to steal more, to add to their wealth. Dangote has no house overseas. Dangote. My children are overseas. I want to have European grandchildren. I want to have a global family. But let me tell you, it's far easier to make money in Nigeria than any other nation. I always boast of that. Far easier. Look at India. The Indian rupee is lower than the British pound, lower than the American dollar. I think the only country in Europe that they can raise muscles with is the Italian lira. But Indians are going back. They are building big hospitals in Bangalore, in different places, building technological-based industries. And with the large population of India, there is a big market, and you will make money and be influential. Carlos Slim, one of the richest persons on earth, is in Mexico. Mexico, their currency is lower than the American dollar. But Carlos Slim is making wealth in Mexico. It is not the value of your national currency that matters. It is not where you are residing that matters. It is what you are doing with yourself that matters. It is the value you are creating that matters. It is true that work ethics and several issues in Africa and third world nations can be very bad. But we are surviving here and we have done well. Don't ever let yourself be vulnerable. Take your skills, take your knowledge, take your resources, bring them back home. Finally, somebody told me of an Indian that carried him in a taxi in the UK. The Indian said that he brought his family to the UK and that they have bought several buildings where they are living. Bought several buildings, and that he is a very rich man. But he was still driving a taxi. And my person asked him, why are you still driving a taxi? I'll pay you just maybe £8 or whatever. He said, I'm driving it because of principles. Principles of transgenerational wealth, principles of remaining healthy, principles of contributing to society. How come the Indians, the Lebanese, the Jews, the Syrians go to countries and possess so much wealth? Harrods supermarket is owned by an Egyptian, contributes so much to the economy. Majority of the international companies in the world are controlled by Indians. But we Africans, we go there, we buy the most expensive clothes, we buy the most expensive wristwatches, we buy the most expensive cars, we compete with each other, we develop the hedonic treadmill. We don't invest much there. We don't invest much back at home. We are just floating and we keep walking into old age in a very hostile climate. Think about these things. I might have offended you and said some things you don't like, but I still remain your friend, Dr. Charles. Apoki, subscribe to my channel. Share this post with others. Go to my online bookstore, petrapublications.com. Petra is Petra publications.com, one word. And you can visit my blog, Dr. Apoki's blog, for more articles. I find it difficult to send hard copies of books to distant places, unless you're going to buy a large volume. You can buy a large volume, then we can courier them, because the cost of sending 2-3 copies to people is so high. I feel very guilty. That's why most of the materials are online. Support this channel, contribute to what we're doing, donate materials, one way or the other, and God bless you. You can also join my mentoring group by sending me a message on WhatsApp, +234 7052 13 6763. God bless you.